pseudonym for the company, right? And Tantec is the pseudonym we used. They said, oh yeah, we just got somebody to come in there. Now it's fewer jobs, but it's jobs. So even a place like Ellis, which is doing relatively well, can be one or two slips away from sliding down that continuum from the being robust to being hollowed out. Okay. Now, what do we do about this at the level of our small towns? By no means do I think it's inevitable that most of these places that are suffering from hollowing out are doomed to failure. I mean, that's one approach to take, is to say, okay, you know what? It's survival of the fittest. If they make it, they make it. If they don't, that's tough. And, you know, it's going to weed out, you know, the weak ones from the strong ones, and so on. I do believe that there are some that are too far gone, that it will require an extraordinary set of circumstances, investments, and outside resources to be able to make a change. But for many, for the majority, the vast majority, that's not the case. So step number one, and I'm cognizant, or at least cognizant, I think most of my audience here today are educators or somewhere involved in education. And I know I do have some folks in the business community, and I'll talk a little bit about their role soon. But for educators, it boils down to this. We have to think about equalizing the resources and how we allocate them to our young people. You know, it's always been the case that, you know, and I had these conversations with the educators in Ellis, that, you know, you want your best kids who, you know, seem destined to do great things, you want them to do that. And in most cases, that means they have to leave because the opportunities aren't there. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong in that at all. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We all like to know that we played a part in somebody's life who went on and did things. I mean, even at the level of Rutgers, Rutgers is a university that has conservatively between 25 and 30% first-generation college students. We have a very diverse campus, racially, ethnically, in terms of class. And I mean, I get a great kick out of helping these guys who are, you know, who made it in spite of the lack of experience in their family, resources, and so on. It feels great to me when I see them on graduation day. It's like, this is a huge achievement. You're the first in your family to graduate college. That's great. But we need to think about everybody. And we need to think about what strategically everybody needs. So for instance, and this is based on, you know, talks and visits I've done since we wrote this book, all over the map. I mean, I could go on and on about the places, a little bit like Johnny Cash, you know. I've been everywhere, except I don't sing quite as well as he does. I tried, but just wasn't happening for me. We need to get at these guys. Let's take our stayers. So in southeastern Iowa, you know, east central Iowa, they have a program that's run ostensibly by Kirkwood Community College, but it's a satellite of theirs called the Jones Regional Education Center. And what the Jones Regional Education Center started out as was a means to reach out to the non-college bound and equip them with the skills, qualifications, certifications that they would need for jobs that were wanted in the regional economy. So they worked with business, and they identified a couple of things early on. Just these were the pilots that they did. One of them was automotive technician, one of them was welding. The employers couldn't get enough guys who had the skills to do these things. And these are decently paying jobs in this region, $12 an hour, $14 an hour, whatever it is. And so they set up these programs where they drew from 6 area high schools, chose a central location, 1 afternoon a week, brought these guys in, people who were interested in it, and they were mostly stayers. And then by the time they left high school, they got them in their sophomore and junior years, they had that certification and a high school diploma. And they walked into those jobs, and the employers were thrilled because, like, this is great. I'm getting them straight out of high school now. They're qualified to do these jobs. This was so successful that they raised $6 million to build the Jones Regional Education Center. I was talking there a little over a month ago. It is an amazing facility. It's in Monticello, Iowa, if you ever want to go there. And it is a model for what can be achieved. And you know, they have a whole array of programs now in this beautiful building. And some are for, you know, gaining college credit for those who, you know, will want to do an associate's or further a 4-year degree. And they, you know, they do general education requirements. But many of the programs are in automotive technician, welding. There's a couple of ag-based programs, again, working with farmers in the region. Here's what we need in terms of kids and qualifications. But matching these kids up with the skills that they need. And another really instructive example from these guys was this. They talked to this graphic design company, and they were saying, oh boy, we really need some young people to come in. But hey, here's what you're going to have to tell them. You're going to have to tell them in middle school that this is the kind of math they're going to need to take in high school if they're going to be able to read a blueprint. Okay? So starting that planning process early enough that kids are making informed decisions. I've been asked about this several places. Oh, this is streaming. It's not streaming. It's actually providing people with information to make a decision themselves. You're not saying you should do this because you're not going to get to 4-year college, let's face it. But here's what you can do. And if this is something that you would like to do, here is the course of study you need to take in high school. So equalizing the resources, matching up our young people with the kinds of opportunities and jobs and training that they're going to need. In terms of job creation, and this is something that is the hot button issue now, right, in our national political stage, that can be very difficult. But what we're seeing in places, and I'm not quite sure about the Indiana situation, so I'm happy in Q&A for you to educate me on this. But I know that the state of Iowa has been and continues to face down this incredible labor shortage. You know, so basically the workforce is very old, and you have tens of thousands of people who are 3 to 8 years from retirement. And there aren't enough people who have the skills to be able to replace these guys. And so, you know, part of it will be, again, matching up our young people coming through, but part of it's going to be retraining people who have skills, but who don't have the skills that are necessary. So, again, working with business, with manufacturing, and sort of saying, what are the areas that you need filled, and how can we, as educators, begin to think about that, both at the high school level, middle school for sure, and at the community college and above level. Part of what's wrong with how we educate, besides the insane push for, standardized test scores and accountability and racing to the top, or whatever the buzzword is now, is that we tend to work in silos in education. I'll give you an example of silo thinking. So I was at a breakfast in Wisconsin, in Door County, Wisconsin, and they brought all the major stakeholders to this breakfast. And I was very excited by this because you don't often see all the local political leaders, all the business leaders, the educators, all the superintendents were there, and it was I don't know if they're the Door County Chamber of Commerce, but basically the business leaders who, had organized this whole thing. And so, I said some things, and we got this conversation going. And a lot of the school superintendents talked about the issues they have. And that, they knew that they needed to do more and be smarter about it and so on. And then one school superintendent says, he says, well, I don't have any problem. And I said, oh, how's that? He said, well, I send 79% of my graduating seniors to four-year college. And I said, that's great. You should be applauded. But I said, you do know that half of those guys won't graduate in 6 years. And depending on if they're first-time college students or if they're low-income college students, it could be more than half. So what are they going to do? Because they've gone to college. In many cases, they've now built up some debt as well, and no degree. So he says, well, when they go out my front door, my job is done. Right? That's it. Done. As soon as they're out of high school, I no longer have to think about them. And, in a sense, he's right. But in a sense, he's very wrong. Because that's really silo thinking. It's just thinking about your own little bailiwick. And if your statistic looks well, and let's be honest about this, that's how national education works now. How are your numbers looking? Are they going up or are they going down? How many are reading at whatever grade level? How many are at their grade level of math, and so on? And I see it from my own kids. They learn some things, certainly, during the year, but from third grade on, the thing they learn most is how to take a test. And they're in a good school system. Same. So, there is this danger that we have where we equate college for all with a four-year college. If you'll indulge me, I'll give you another, for instance, or an example from my road tour of small towns. Hamilton, New York, which is actually not that bad off, but you have Colgate University there, but really outside Hamilton and in parts of the town itself, you have a lot of poor people. So I was asked to do an assembly, which really, I have to say, scared the life out of me. Because they had all the 6th through 12th graders in a room smaller than this lower level, right? Packed. 2 o'clock. I'd just given 2 talks at 11 and 12. Yeah, 11 and 12. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. These people really, they worked me like a farmhand. And so, and I'm breaking it for the 2 o'clock because I'm like, I'm going to control all these kids. And there's teachers there, so I'm assured a little bit that I won't turn into a riot. But I said to them, so many of you here are going to go to college. So a lot of hands shut up. I said, many of you here are going to go to a 4-year college or a university. More or less all the same hands. Many of you here are going to go to community college or a VOTEC. 2. This is a K through 12 school, so a lot of kids in it. So I said, okay. All right, so we did this experiment then. And I said, look, if you wanted to stay in Hamilton, what are some of the jobs you could do? And they just ran with it. They were like, hands were flying up everywhere. I could be custodian, I could work at the gas station, I could be in the police,